They beat the Ravens pretty hard, man. Their defense looks
welcome
good.
y'all to the Political Science Student Association meeting. This topic for this week is presidential immunity, so whenever you guys are ready, you can jump on in. Also, there'll be an attendance sheet running around in just a little bit. And yeah, thank y'all for coming.
For those of you who might be new to this, we do this every Wednesday at noon. The attendance sheet will verify your attendance, and if you put a faculty name next to it, we will contact that faculty member. Can't guarantee they'll do anything about it, but at least they will know that you did attend this. Bug them for extra credit. So, does anybody want to explain what we mean by presidential immunity? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it provides certain protections of the President of the United States from liability in legal proceedings, particularly for actions related to official duties.
Okay. And where did that come from?
From Trump, United States, Supreme Court ruling 2024. This is gonna be good.
This is gonna be a crazy topic.
And it's also started from Nixon when he when the Watergate scandal was starting happening. Nixon hid evidence, but when that evidence started surface, his legacy was tarnished.
Did we talk about the Supreme Court decision?
Yeah, he did bring it up.
Okay. So what do you all think?
It's horrible.
Why is it horrible?
No president should be able to be above the law. Like, if you do something in office that is illegal, you should face the consequences and be able to say, I forget what the exact ruling was, what they said, but like that there's like unofficial acts as president or something like that. You can't be punished once you're out of office, which is just, I think, is insane. It's pretty much all just for Trump's benefit, though, because now he gets to do even more crazy things in office and have not face any consequences once he gets out of office in 2028, if he doesn't try doing something in 2028, but that's beside the point.
Okay, if I am correct, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this already, but the court decision said that official acts of presidents are immune from prosecution. Unofficial acts, acts that are not part of the president's duties, have presumptive immunity, if I am correct. But that means there can be evidence introduced that immunity should not be given. And that there are also acts outside of all this that are not covered by immunity. But you think that official actions by presidents shouldn't be covered by immunity?
Like if
They should be subject to prosecution like everybody else?
they should be. No one should be above the law. Like, again, you are the president. Yes, you are probably the most powerful person in the country and about the world. But it doesn't mean that you should be able to do things and not face any consequences. That is inherently a very bad thing, because that leads down a very bad road of, maybe a more authoritative type presidency that, honestly, looking at the past couple of weeks, we're slowly starting to go that direction even faster. So I don't know. I just saying that I think it's a horrible thing.
Okay. Yeah.
I will correct that it's presumed immunity for official acts and no immunity, no presumption at all for unofficial acts.
For unofficial acts, but there is a middle ground where they talked about presumptive immunity.
Presumptive is for official, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, actually, that might be worth looking up. I don't know if anybody can look that up, but
absolute immunity for official acts and presumptive immunity for others, leaving them fully liable for unofficial actions.
okay.
For unofficials, completely.
So what's the presumptive immunity then? For what? If they're official acts, then they're covered by immunity?
So it's
But if they're not official acts, then they aren't.
It's regarding the burden of proof. Who has the burden of proof regarding the presumption of immunity? In the case of a claimed official act, the presumption would lie on the president.
There you go. Okay.
But if it's
in other words, the burden of proof is outside the president to determine whether something was official or unofficial.
yes,
Okay, with the presumption that it was official and has immunity.
if it's presumed official by the court,
That's
it's
right. There you go.
presumed off limits.
Okay. And you think that's dangerous? I don't mean to come back to you, but
Yes, I believe that's what they
okay. Yeah.
I think the idea of the president is to be as a public servant and a citizen. Why are we giving some person, a citizen of the United States, extra rights that we aren't afforded when they're supposed to be a representative of us? And I think that is a dangerous slope, because the idea of freedom in the United States means that everybody's equal, and if we start to treat our leaders like they're better than us, then we go into authoritarianism.
Okay, so you're worried that immunity means above the law?
It was just to play devil's advocate. I think part of it also, the reason why it was added in a lot of ways was because for other countries and stuff, there's been multiple instances of where presidents were arrested falsely just to get them out of the presidency. But there's always a risk that if you could arrest the president, it could be a thing of someone else wanting to get power. And then also, a lot of the restrictions like that came from wartime efforts where they had to do illegal things to make sure the safety of the country was actually still continuing. So where is that line where yes, we want people not to be able to take the presidency away from someone incredibly easily, or just have that gap in there? Is there a good option?
I feel like immunity, after doing your terms with the presidency, that I feel like that just incentivizes more abuse of power.
Go ahead. No.
I don't know if the immunity extends after the president's term is over, or are they still liable?
Well, it doesn't extend to ex-presidents, but are they immune from their acts in office after they leave office, would be the question.
Yeah, that's a very big question that I would say. I understand there's the need for the president to be able to execute the plan. After all, it was elected, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with the terms in which it was elected or not, it was elected. It has a job that it's set to do, and it has to do so in the most efficient way possible. I believe that we have all been witness that now that a lot of the process, a lot of these people have been using the system and coming up with a lot of allegations and a lot of lawsuits, which can take it very much to the public eye and can serve as very bad PR for a public official, nonetheless the president. So that can serve very much as a tactic for a lot of individuals to do very bad campaign against their political opposition from left and from the right. So I believe that having some clauses that protects the president in that regard is important, so they can actually act on what they campaigned and were elected for. But I do not believe their immunity should extend once they're done. Once the dust is settled, they have completed their agenda, they've finished what they're supposed to be doing, their term is over, they must be held liable to the same law that we all have.
To kind of answer that, the reason why it does extend after is so that presidents can feel safe enacting certain things that if presidential immunity didn't exist, they would then be prosecuted. So we either put someone in and we tell them that they're going to get in trouble, they're not going to do what needs to be done in that moment under the pretense that they are not going to be prosecuted after. Do I think maybe there should be some more limitations? Yes, I think that's kind of where the line blurs between the official and unofficial. I wish I personally knew more about, what makes something unofficial, or official and unofficial. But also, the whole point of presidential immunity, in my view, is to ensure separate executive function and separate judicial function, which is somewhat what this country is founded upon. Not somewhat, it is what this country is founded upon. So, if we start to prosecute presidents, whether correctly or not, the half or more than half of the population that has put their weight behind that president, even after office, they're still not going to be happy that they're being, came after essentially by the judicial branch. It's people are so set in their parties, especially right now, that they're not going to be able to separate the judicial branch. It'll just become a thing of, as we kind of saw when Trump was getting a lot of these things, half the population just said, the courts are lying. That's probably not the case, but that's what it starts to look like, and that's why we've kind of paid attention over the past almost 250 years to not intentionally prosecute presidents after, because it just starts like a deadly cycle.
Going back to what you said about playing the devil's advocate, again, I do kind of get why there is an implementation for it, but again, we're too early into what this entails because it only happened last year. We don't know if this is going to carry over with the same thing. Is it going to like are future candidates are they also going to be able to have the same exact protections that Trump did, or is it just to benefit Trump? We don't know yet. And for right now, a lot of people are saying, is it just for Trump or is it just for every president? Again, we don't know. Time will tell that if by 2032 we can see if presidents are starting to get, there's more backlash for it, or if there is more pushback or anything like that, we'd be able to tell. But right now, I do think it's just too early to tell if this Supreme Court ruling actually is dangerous or yet. But I think it is still personally dangerous, but we don't know for maybe a few more years.
I feel like the point that you were making about retribution, feeling like this whole other side is against you, it does have a merit to it, right? Of course, we're choosing these people into office, and they're coming in and they're enacting their plans, and they have this whole idea that they want to follow and set this country up on this site. But it has then to go through our lens of understanding that if that person later on is found guilty of something that they did, and without, it's proven, it's taken to trial, and it follows its due process, and they're considered liable to doing that wrongdoing, it stands against at least the feeling that many Americans have that there must be justice in this country. And that's the reason why, Lady Liberty has her eyes blindfolded. Doesn't matter who you are and what you are, and even though we have to take legal and sometimes reprehensible decisions to keep America, in the end, what this country and the idea of justice was built upon is it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, and what intentions you do it from. There's still consequences for your actions.
Okay, so just one quick thing. Is there a hint in there of what you said, and please clarify if I'm misunderstanding, that this might be a sort of necessary evil that doesn't look good but might be?
I feel like there's a lot of people who feel that way, that feel like sometimes presidents may do illegal things and need to have it do illegal things. Like in a realist view, we might not always do something that is not, nice or moral and can be very reprehensive. It might be an action that for security or for whatever reason the president or its cabinet may think it's necessary, and sometimes it needs to be done. But it does not excuse, even if it's for the right reasons, it does not excuse that we have laws that must be followed.
So I do want to disagree that we don't know whether this would be bad or not. Presidential immunity is not the only immunity out there. Police officers, for example, have qualified immunity. And for them, it's not absolute. They have to demonstrate that they were acting in the course of their duties and that they didn't violate a well-established right. But historically, qualified immunity cases kind of get abused and used for really gross offenses that we would all here agree police officers shouldn't do that. Like, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, there's cases out there you can find of qualified immunity abuses. So we're now looking at giving the President of the United States, who has more power, more authority, and even higher burden or a higher standard of immunity, and then saying, we don't know, we do know, it's going to go bad.
So you're worried about what might be, and I don't want to make too light of this, but you're worried about what might be termed immunity creep.
Yes.
That it would extend just a little bit further and a little bit further.
That's perfectly what I'm talking about. Because we're talking the basis of the immunity that we're talking about is the hypothetical scenario where the president has to do an act of war to defend the country, and then it later gets ruled unconstitutional. He doesn't have that duty, and then we say, oh well, he was acting in good faith. There's also bad faith. We're talking about absolute immunity for everything, including bad faith cases.
So then the thing that, I'm sorry.
Secondary, in a criminal prosecution, there are arraignments and probable cause hearings. It's not like the system is going to hold them back for forever. If there's probable cause of a crime by a president, they should go through due trial, and they should be hindered in their term, in my opinion, if there's due process or if there's a probable cause of some criminal element.
So then what you would most be worried about, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, would be that qualified immunity part, that eventually maybe even the lack of energy to prosecute might then be taken in the future as an excuse for presidents to do something that might not have otherwise fallen under the immunity.
The worst
set
case,
a precedent.
the worst case is that qualified immunity gets abused and it's qualified. Like, it's not an absolute immunity. So we're now giving a even more bigger blanket of immunity to the President of the United States. And
Yeah, that the immunity creep, and is that a problem because many people would feel somewhat constrained in going after presidents of the United States?
absolutely.
Okay. You guys find it out.
You guys have first.
I think it sets a bad precedent, not president, because they can use the presidency for personal gain. I think we've already seen a lot of instances where there has been acts of war and the president wasn't prosecuted, like Obama drone strikes. That was from the executive branch, and is Obama in jail right now? And that was before the presidential immunity ruling. I think the way we have been operating has protected the president, but we need to have something in place so where the president isn't above us. So if they use the presidency per personal gain, even if it is under an official act, we still need to be able to prosecute it. And I think this sets a dangerous area, a gray area, where the president can do something officially, and it doesn't matter if it's right, wrong, constitutional, unconstitutional, as long as it's an official act.
Again, this is just a slippery slope of presidential immunity of what this can lead to. Again, do we know that if a president in the future is going to get the same benefits that Trump is getting right now? Do we think that a Democratic candidate, if let's say they win in 2028, let's say they try doing something that the Supreme Court says, oh, but that's illegal, we're going to still prosecute you, even we're going to loop around, we're going to defeat our own words because they have a majority in Supreme Court. What if they just try wiggling things around and say like, oh, you did commit a wrongful act, we're still going to prosecute you, but it was only for Republicans or Trump, and it's just such a slippery slope that the fact that we're giving more power to a branch that already has a lot of power and making the executive more powerful is just going to cause so many more issues in this country. And again, we're seeing it now where Trump is starting to do things with, in the last few weeks, we've been seeing a lot of movement, a lot of more power display by Trump that is very concerning. That again, we're only how far we're into his presidency at this point?
8 months.
8 months?
9 months.
Oh my goodness! And it already feels like it's already been 4 years, and we're not even a year in. And it's just I can't imagine what's going to happen now. Now that again the Supreme Court's on his side completely, what else is it going to lead to? I don't know.
I kind of had two different thoughts. One was like, would you guys, like, go back to his statements earlier, would you guys prefer there to be like a clause where if there was abuse of presidential immunity that they could risk impeachment? And then I also had another thought of if we do not have presidential immunity, would that affect the authority of a president? Because you're talking about they should be more like a citizen, but they're not really. A president in any country has a lot of more granted freedoms than a regular citizen. Even like military members, where you have cadets on campus, they can have like guns in certain ways that we can't. They can go into military bases. They can do things that a regular civilian can't. And that goes all the way up to government. Like we can't just go into our House of Representatives, start representing our state and start all of that. Do you think it would negatively affect the authority of a president and how we are supposed to be able to like, view them if we view them too close as being a normal citizen?
Do either of you want to briefly answer that, or then we'll go over the...
You want to do it?
Yeah, I think that there's already these protections in place, like you were talking about with the cadets or House of Representatives, different government members. They already have these protections and different authorities and privileges. Where if we add a whole extra step, I think we already have protections in place, and now we are giving an opportunity for an abuse of power. I think it is just an extra step that is not necessary, I guess, is where I'm coming from.
To kind of go off of both your slippery slope point and putting, procedures in place, I think, or limits in place, I should say. I feel like if we didn't have presidential immunity, it would result in each side just attacking each other using the judicial system every time. Like, Okay, they did one case, okay, now we're gonna do it worse. I mean, parties do that all the time, where they see something that the other party does, and they're like, oh my god, no, guys, that's awful, stop doing that. And then the next election cycle, they're employing the exact same tactic, because it works. So if Trump's a difficult case because he just is such like an outlier compared to, other cases, so it makes it a difficult thing to consider in the conversation. But I feel like we also have to zoom out in this whole conversation and remember that we are the most powerful country in the world, therefore this is the most powerful elected leader in the world. If he didn't have some kind of protection, like if we're the most powerful, we have to make the hardest decisions. So I feel like it's necessary for them to be able to carry out their job to its fullest extent in office. And this includes things that we'll never even know about. Operations that the CIA is going to maybe half redacted release in like 60 years. And we're going to be like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But it's just, it takes time, kind of as you were saying earlier, Tim.
Okay, just quickly, speaking of devil's advocate, has this been a problem in the past? Is this a problem that the immunity decision is trying to solve? Are there examples from the past? Or is this a solution that's in search of a problem?
I don't know.
I mean, has there been a problem with presidents being...
I guess my point is I don't know if there's that much history to it, but I mean
Okay.
that because parties often employ tactics that the other party did, that it would eventually happen.
Okay, so you think it would have been inevitable then?
Yes.
Okay. All right, do you want to say something?
Thinking of the Aaron Burr conspiracy trial, which he wasn't president, but he was vice president.
Yeah.
Vice president under Jefferson, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that directly impugned the administration, and there were criminal elements. Burr was tried for conspiracy. And so we do have a small history of criminally investigating presidents. There's Nixon, there's Jefferson in this case, Trump now. So I think this is the first president to have been indicted. None of the other presidents that have been investigated, some of them who should have been indicted, in my opinion, weren't indicted. So there wasn't like a mass issue of presidents being arrested, taken out of the White House in cuffs. This is, in my opinion, as Dr. Cavalli has stated, this is a solution searching for a problem.
Okay, Nicholas, you wanted to?
I think there was something along the sides of Jimmy Carter and a peanut farm or some illegal funds that I think they were trying to prosecute him on. Again, this is something that I heard. I don't remember too much exactly. I don't know if you know anything about this, Professor Cavalli. I know there's probably been events in the past where presidents have been challenged within the judicial system. And there's very important for presidents, like you were saying, to set an example and to be able to do what their constituents ask them to do, right? I think what happens right now, of course, as you said, Trump is an outlier. I think what may be a problem in the future is when outliers become the norm. And as I've seen in Professor Cavalli's class, once the tool set is out of the box, right? Once you acquire that presidential immunity and a lot of other people campaign or now, oh, we're gonna focus more on bipartisan deals, we're gonna focus more on de-escalating these kind of rights we've been given, they seldomly don't. So right now we're seeing people, Trump using those powers, and in the future we might see a Democratic president expanding on those powers. I do not believe that any person who gets elected into that office, if they have immunity, they're going to be willing to give it up. They're going to only seek to enhance their immunity and do more things. So I think it doesn't start with a big leap, right? It's progressive, and it is necessary. We do have a necessity. We do have a necessity to sometimes the presidents do some things that we might not consider legal. But to which extent are we able to stomach those decisions and let that president do that? Because it's not going to stop with President Trump. Whether like him or dislike him or approve of what he's doing, is just the idea that he is growing the power of the executive in this idea that have of an all-encompassing executive working with news channels and trying to pull like Jim Kimmel off air, and then trying to say again on Truth Social again that he desires for that to be for him to be deplatformed, the rhetoric is not likely to tone down. It's only likelier to escalate, whether it be from a Republican or a Democratic senator, and it's frightening because right now it's against people on the left. Tomorrow may be against people on the right.
One thing that I've seen, and I wish I could remember the name of the person and which part of the government they were in. It was one of the like areas that was recently getting defunded, and I can't remember if it was like the education branch or like something like that. But there was a member that was fairly like anti-Trump. She was preventing some of the acts that Doge was wanting to go into. She was voting against it, and someone had searched up trying to find anything illegal to like disqualify her from her position, and they found out whenever she was doing I'm too poor to know what this is, but like whenever you go to apply for like funding for like a house with like a bank, you go to like mortgage. Mm-hmm. She was applying for a mortgage. There was one document that had the wrong address she used for old house address, and they saw it as illegally or like going about it the wrong way for like mortgage law, and they didn't charge her of anything, but they said that it showed her untrustworthiness and then removed her from the position for that, which is absolutely crazy. And I'm sure that there's instances of Democrats doing that where if someone was against them, they would try and find any little thing that could remove them from their position. And I think that there is like a risk even all the way at the top if we get to like this point, because there is such clashing of people that they no longer allow someone to disagree, that they want to get rid of anyone who is not part of their plan, whether it's from both sides. And that is a worrying continuancy that is like happening and getting worse.
But let me throw a couple of quick things into the mix here, going way back to the Watergate scandal in the 1970s. One, getting back to the idea of indictment, when there was evidence against Richard Nixon, the indictments that were handed down to some of the people in the White House also listed Richard Nixon as a, quote, unindicted co-conspirator, because the Justice Department felt, we're not sure that a president could be indicted. So they listed him as an unindicted co-conspirator. He's part of the conspiracy, but we're not going to indict him. Okay. One, how does that fit into the mix? But also, two, when being interviewed about his career as president, and including the Watergate scandal later on, Richard Nixon is famous to have been quoted as saying, if the president does it, then it's not illegal. How do those two things fit into the mix? What do you think? Yeah.
So first off, it was Lisa Cook you're thinking about, one of the governors on the board of the Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve Board, yeah.
Also, the thing about unindicted conspirators happens in our state governments too. Right now we have a candidate for governor who is an unindicted conspirator in the election fraud trial against Trump, Burt Jones. So the question is, should people be should the immunity extend to something like that, where the people around them, they were involved in something illegal, but the president or whoever they were at the time wasn't actively or possibly passively involved in an act, a criminal act that later becomes indicted? Because to have a whole lineup of people indicted and then you have one unindicted conspirator, and the only difference between them two is just a title that they have, it completely goes against the concept of rule of law, how popular sovereignty, we all have the power of the government, and then we empower one person. We still have the power to look into their actions. And also, as a practicality standpoint, the opinion of Trump versus United States, in it, Justice Roberts writes that the judiciary can't review some presidential actions, because that's the whole crust of the argument.
Well, now Oh, I'm sorry.
which is like insane because like the whole point of the Constitution itself is to have three separate branches of power. That's what makes the Constitution great, because like other countries have Bill of Rights similar to ours, but their government sucks, and we have a Bill of Rights and a Constitution with a separation of powers. But here the opinion is saying the separation of powers does not extend so far, which is
Okay, and forgive me for keeping interrupting you, but that raises an interesting point, because when you talk about the question of people around the president, of course, presidents do have absolute constitutional power to grant pardons and reprieves, including, we now know, preemptive pardons. It's not just, okay, you've been convicted and now we're going to pardon you. Presidents, we seem to accept the idea that presidents can now pardon people before any legal action has ever occurred. So does that mean that, combined with presidential immunity, does that mean that president resolved as to whether or not presidents can pardon themselves or not? So does this mean that presidents and their entire executive branch can, let's take the most exaggerated case, can they do whatever they want and then just presidents are immune and they can pardon everybody else? Does that free presidents from any responsibility? Is that going too far? Is that kind of a crazy far out idea, or is that something to be concerned about?
I think there's no legal precedent, and that's why it is scary. We haven't had a case where a president has like, okay, let's like just try and kill people and see if I can get away with it. And I don't think that there should even be any wiggle room to where, well, we just got to figure that out.
You might want to ask the people who are associated with the Venezuelan vote.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, as a history, presidents have always killed people with just pure impunity, as long as it doesn't happen within our borders.
Right. I mean, I see there was already presidential immunity to an extent, and it was already within like the Constitution. We had seen this in that they had just taken this extra step. There was already immunity for civil acts, and now they've taken the extra step where they're immune from criminal acts, and the criminal acts are the worst of them. Why are we providing this extra excuse for presidents in the executive branch to be able to do whatever they want? Whether it is right or wrong, we don't want to be able to take that risk. I think it's too risky.
So do you think presidents are the beneficiaries of our hesitancy?
I think so.
Did you want to?
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you were talking about, this all goes back from a little bit ago. You were talking about how presidential immunity does have benefit, and I do kind of get what you're saying about how in today's modern politics of how polarized everything is. I do feel like what happened with Trump definitely did open the floodgates that people, even though I do think Trump was guilty in all of those things that he did, it definitely does open the floodgates. Like, hey, they targeted us, we're going to start targeting the other side, and it's going to go back and forth, back and forth. But the thing is, that the whole problem is, Trump did call, what's his, it's Brad Raffensperger, who, I forget what position he was during the 2020 election. Secretary of State. When he called him during the 2020 election and said, I need 16,000 votes and I need you to find them, pretty much trying to steal Georgia's vote and to flip it red. And thank God at least Raffensperger had a conscience and said, no, I'm not doing that. But he did call it. There's audio evidence of this. And as soon as that ruling happened of Trump leaving the United States, that court case was thrown out the window. They're like, we're not pursuing this anymore. What this just shows that Trump can now, if he wanted to, and again, we don't know yet. We don't know what's going to happen in 2026 or the midterms or 2028 with the next presidential election. What if Trump wants to just blatantly cheat and like there is 100% evidence? Hey, he cheated here. Can we not go after him anymore? Can we just like, well, you have immunity. You cheated. You blatantly stole the election, but hey, you have immunity. We can't do anything about that. Like, where does the line cross? Like, where does it? where does it stand? Like, I don't know. It's really hard to tell, but that is a very dangerous thing that we can go down. That he did do something illegal, and they threw up the court case because now that presidential immunity is now in fact.
I mean, I'm just gonna add like a little something to that. Why should a president be able to be immune for something that we aren't? I think that they're already afforded so much power. Why are we giving them this opportunity for immunity on acts where we're the victims, we're at harm? Whatever side you're on, it doesn't matter. They're the ones in power, they're the ones in charge. We don't want them to be able to enact whatever will they have on us.
I think that there's some truth to that, but there's also the fact that they were elected. They were elected, they have the necessity to implement whatever campaigns and whatever promises they made during campaigns and the things that they ran on, right? They are not like us. That is this plain and simple truth. They have a higher calling and they have to do something that we are not in the position of doing. I do believe that they need immunity, at least while they are on power, not after they're done. That might open the floodgates for subsequent retribution, and I do believe that that's something that needs to be, advocated and pursued in the future. But I do believe they need to be able to have all their strength of mind to do what they were elected. And that doesn't mean that we have to like it and we just have to suck it up. We must be able to pursue and get justice for wherever it's done in the term. But the president must not stand unopposed, but must at least have the peace of mind that they can try and focus on passing the legislation that they are. And that is hard, but it is something that they need to be able to do what they have.
We keep asking like where the limit is, or what do we do to stop it, or if an election was, to be stolen, plain day, there's plenty of evidence, the prosecution didn't suddenly drop the case. I think it's still a democracy, nothing changed. We still hold the government responsible. If a party messes up that bad, cheats in an election, they're not going to get reelected. I think it's kind of a little more plain and simple than we're making it.
So you're suggesting that things other than judicial action will try to reset the balance?
Yeah, I mean, we rely on separation of powers, of course, but at the end of the day, it's the people that hold the government responsible. So if the people had seen enough in this election cycle, I know it might be hard to believe, but over half of the population did elect President Trump, then they wouldn't have elected him if they thought it was bad enough.
Actually, why don't we jump in here, because I think all three of you raised your hands at the exact same time. If you guys want to do like the full rock, paper, scissors thing, I know we can get to trying everybody, but just y'all kind of...
You can go. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
I go? Okay.
Yeah, you can go. It's
All right.
fine.
You guys invited up. So, Kamala Harris sucking is not an excuse to give President Trump a complete blank check to the government. So, second off, point me out a president, and I could probably argue a good reason we should have locked them up and thrown away the key. Almost every single president has done something that everyone in this room would call criminal if done by someone else. The only difference being that they're president, they're elected by democracy, and apparently democracy gives them a blank check to do whatever they want. I don't really view democracy that way. I view the government differently. It doesn't have ultimate authority to do whatever it wants just because someone won an election, someone won a popularity contest, especially in states where like the turnout is like less than 50%. Our turnout numbers are getting worse and worse every year. So I just can't get behind the thought of giving immunity to a president, to any president, given the history of the presidency, the US presidency, and given what we're seeing now. So this worry that presidents are going to be soft-spoken and be refusant to do anything in their office. In the past, the apparent ruling doctrine was presidents could be technically charged. Despite that being the rule, and in the past, the United States having done so much bad stuff around the world and nothing happening there, you just can't convince me that there's a really grand concern that we need to give absolute immunity to the President of the United States.
I'm not trying to attack you with this, but just the whole thing about if a president does something blatantly illegal, that the people should vote them out of office. I want to believe wholeheartedly that I believe that our institutions and that the general public is smart enough and strong enough to be, hey, this person's dangerous, let's get him out of office. I would love to think that, but we don't live in that world. We don't. And I do fear that, again, if a president is willing to do something blatantly illegal, and people see that, what is stopping him from just fully just rigging the entire election where it looks like everyone did vote for him, or at least the majority, or did win the electoral college? And because again, what if Trump, again, this all would have taken, what if Trump did make Rathenberger find those 16,000 votes, flip Georgia red, and then what if he did the same thing? And I think I don't know if Georgia was the tilt state to be able to for Biden to win. If it was, I don't remember. But let's say that would happen. That would have flipped to Trump winning the 2020 election. What's stopping him from just doing that again in 20? And again, I'm not saying that he's going to run in 2028, but let's say another Republican candidate in 2028 just be like, I'm going to rig this. I have presidential immunity now. I'm going to just say that I'm going to flip these states red. We win. Bada bing, bada bing, we're done.
I'm going to jump in really quick though. The idea of like the conspiracy around voting, I think can be like a really bad thing. Even if, say, a president does do something illegal, that doesn't necessarily mean that a president would have the power to change our voting system and how our votes are taken. There aren't like protections around voting that, and I think installing the idea and the fear that maybe our votes aren't actually counted can be very dangerous. That's something that was spouted during Democratic elections where a Democrat president won, and that's the same thing that happened during a president for a Republican that won. People don't like to accept that maybe the votes didn't go their way, and we do not always have like a very high voting turnout, and I think that's a very bad thing. But the idea of the conspiracy that our votes don't actually matter can really negatively affect voter turnout. So I just wanted to
I'm
jump
not
in
saying
on
that it's going to happen. It's just a scary possibility, and it's definitely something that is concerning with how this country is heading, the direction it's going to.
Okay, she's.
I do understand where you're coming from, and I agree, and I totally agree with what you're saying. We do have to be kind of careful with our words here.
Yeah.
But you said that you want to believe that the institutions will work.
Yeah.
If anything, does the guy getting the call for the 16,000 votes and then reporting it and doing the right thing, does not kind of prove that the institution works? So I understand the fear that something happened and that therefore it could be taken further, but it was stopped. And then also you said that all presidents pretty much would have been like locked up essentially and keys thrown away. Is that not the whole point of the conversation that we're having about presidential immunity? If we didn't have it, then every president would have been locked up and thrown away? Like, we need it. I don't. Alright, that's all.
But it hasn't happened.
Huh?
It hasn't happened.
Because we have presidential immunity.
No, we didn't have it until 2024. That's my point, is that presidents have been acting in pure impunity. Even with immunity, they act in impunity.
Perhaps not official presidential immunity, but at least the understanding that if you start locking up presidents for what they do in office, it would continue to every president, because every president has actions, as you said, that we would probably consider lockable.
Yeah. I'll go
Last words, and then we'll wrap it up.
There was already constitutional rights afforded to the president that weren't afforded to us. I think it's unnecessary that we're taking this extra step. Presidents shouldn't be able to be immune for stealing an election, killing anyone, and so on and so forth. I think providing presidential immunity threatens our democracy itself. A president shouldn't have immunity to do what they please. We voted for them, but we want to have another election if they do something we don't like. It kind of threatens democracy itself if the president is afforded this executive power over us and over the legislative branches and the judicial branch. And a president could threaten our very way of life in democracy if they choose to with this immunity ruling, because they'll just be immune as long as they do it under a presidential act, official presidential act.
Okay, Anita, why don't you take us out?
All right, we had some really great back and forth there. I want to thank y'all for coming and having this discussion, that we can actually have this openly. that we are able to like talk about these things, have different opinions, and be here and be able to do that. I also want to thank y'all for coming last week's Constitution event. We were a majority of the crowd, so thank y'all for coming to that. That was awesome. We also have more pocket constitutions. Please don't make me take these home. We have so many. If you don't have a constitution, please grab one. We'll be back here next week, and also if you guys have topic ideas, message our group me, message our Instagram. We are always open to ideas. So, yeah, thank y'all.
Life is